Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Recent India with your host, Kriti Mishra, and today we'll analyze the PLI scheme for the telecom sector. After the launch of a production-linked incentive scheme for manufacturing, Government of India has launched the scheme for telecommunications and networking products with an outlay of 12,195 crore rupees over 5 years. The core component of this scheme is to offset the huge import of telecom equipment worth more than 50,000 crore rupees and reinforce it with Made in India products, both for domestic markets and exports. With the inclusion of the telecom equipment manufacturing under the ambit of PLI schemes, the total number of schemes under such programs stands at 30. All the sectors included under the various PLI schemes are mostly labour-intensive and aim at attracting global manufacturing giants into the Indian manufacturing space. And to discuss the way forward, I'm joined by Mrs. Anita Praveen, Additional Secretary, Department of Telecommunications, Mr. Rajiv Mahajan, Member, CII, National Committee on Electronics, and Mr. George Paul, CEO, MAIT. Welcome to Rajya Sabha Television, all of you. And before we begin this discussion, few insights for our viewers. So the production-linked incentive scheme for the telecom sector will be operational from April 11th this year. The eligibility for the scheme will be subject to achieving a minimum threshold of cumulative investment and incremental sales of manufactured goods. 2019-20 will be treated as the base year for computation of cumulative incremental sales of manufactured goods net of taxes. The scheme also has high proposed investments for micro, small and medium enterprises. For MSMEs, the government has proposed 1% higher incentive in the first 3 years. The minimum investment threshold for MSMEs has been kept at 10 crore, for others at 100 crore. And now let's go back to our guests. Mrs. Praveen, coming to you first. Before we get into the specifics of the telecom sector, help us deconstruct the concept of production-linked incentive scheme and why is it needed?
Thank you so much. As everyone is aware, last November there was an umbrella scheme approved by the cabinet under which 12 sectors were chosen to bring the production-linked incentive scheme. And under this, telecom was one of the sectors. Telecom, as far as Indian telecom manufacturing is concerned, it must be highlighted here that we really need to give a major push to this sector to make India a hub in this manufacturing. Till date, we have been doing a little value addition in India compared to what we would have expected for a country the size of India. And we have been dependent on imports to a great extent. So with these thoughts, it was very important that India was made a center for production of telecom equipment. With this idea, the PLI has been brought in. The companies which will be interested in manufacturing in India will be incentivized, and you have already rightly presented that there would be a cumulative investment to be done to qualify under the scheme. Once the investment is made, and that is to be made over a period of 4 years, the companies will get their incentives over a period of 5 years. So a little bit of the handicap that might be felt due to certain market conditions will be covered. And it will be ensured that all the companies who are investing in India, whether it is from abroad or whether they are Indian companies, they will get the benefit out of it. The point that needs to be highlighted here is that it is not only to attract investment from abroad. There is a specific segment that has been created for the MSME in India who are manufacturing telecom equipment, not at a very large scale, but we are looking at them to take benefit under the scheme, not just become from small to big, a slightly bigger company, but very big companies. The scheme will assist them in terms of providing the incentive and handhold for 5 years till they stand on their own, not just new manufacturers, but the existing ones also. The other feature that the scheme has, and that is not just for the MSME, but for the big manufacturers also, is that there is a large unused capacity with the industry. the one which are already manufacturing in India, also have a large unused capacity. So the scheme provides for manufacturing from 3 times to 20 times of the investment made. The investment is to be made in 4 tranches over a period of 4 years. The first year a minimum of 20%, the next year a minimum of another 20%, then 30%, and finally reach a total of 100% in the last year. So every year the company which is investing will have the potential of manufacturing either up to 3 times and get the benefit, or use the existing unused capacity to manufacture up to 20 times of the investment amount. The incentive will be eligible on this entire amount. So we are not just covering investment, we are also covering unutilized capacity, which has been an issue that has been raised by the industry. Let me also point out here that the scheme has been designed after extensive consultation with the industry, and we have taken care of all the requirements that were presented to the Department of Telecom.
All right, ma'am, you were making very important points there, and let me take that to Mr. Mahajan. Mr. Mahajan, Mrs. Praveen was talking about the unutilized capacity, the fact that we also import around 85% of components in the telecommunications space. How important is this scheme for giving a boost to the telecom manufacturing ecosystem in India?
Sure. Thank you. It's a very good question. But I want to take your attention in a bit different way. If we look at telecom products in India, component is a very, very important play, which for sure we are lagging presently in the country. And as you said, we import around 85% of the components. So we have to anyway focus on building our component industry. But to add to that, a huge amount of value addition, which is happening in telecom products, is based on IPR, which we are creating in India. So if you look at a telecom equipment versus any other electronic equipment, there is a huge software portion which is there and huge IP which is there in telecom equipment, because like the amount of software which goes into it is huge. So what we are excellent in, and that's what India is known for, is basically products which are software enabled. So while we are still lacking on components and which we have to catch up, and I'm sure with this policy, a lot of component manufacturing also will come into the country. The other PLIs focus on that. But we have to specifically look at that, how do we ensure that more and more IP is created in the country through this policy, and we do a lot of value addition in the country.
All right, so let me take that to Mr. Paul. Mr. Paul, another important aspect, of course, is of security, because telecom equipment forms a very critical and a very strategic part of the entire telecommunication infrastructure that India has. Now, India aspires to be the original manufacturer of the components, and also the fact that we have the National Security Directive on telecommunications sector. From the perspective of national security, how important is this move?
Okay, thank you for inviting me to this discussion. I would begin with congratulating the Ministry of Telecommunication for bringing out the scheme. And before I come to your question on security aspect, I just want to highlight, three, I would say, landmark steps that we as a country have taken in bringing out PLI for electronics. This is a declaration by India that we recognize that economies are competing for manufacturing space, and India as a country is willing to compete for that. This is one landmark that we see in this PLI scheme that has been announced. The second thing that we see is the declaration that, look, I will tailor my scheme towards what my country needs. And I will bring out a scheme where I will attract the players that I want. It need not necessarily be applicable for everybody. This again is something which is a very, very progressive step that is taken. And the third landmark aspect of this is that it, very unabashedly says, I will recognize Indian companies separately, which is equally important in our thrust of, offsetting the foreign exchange imbalance that comes because of the 85% dependence that is there. And these are very landmark. We as industry are very upbeat, and we see 2030 as a decade of electronics for India as a country. Coming to your question on security, yes, particularly telecom building blocks are at the core of the digital infrastructure of a nation and of daily life. And in this context, then having the assurance that your network is secure, you know what is there, you're able to protect it, becomes extremely important. And in that context, when you do manufacturing in the country, when you have Indians doing the manufacturing, be it a global company or an Indian company, this will lead to, over the next many years, of having a very, very secure infrastructure for our country itself.
Well, absolutely, sir. This is a very important move as far as making the entire infrastructure very secure. But Mrs. Praveen, coming to you, as Mr. George said, that 2030 would be the decade of India's electronics and telecommunications industry. Do you agree, ma'am?
Absolutely agree with what he says, and the steps are already being taken. Various moves that the Department of Telecom has been taking and the other departments are taking. It's definitely going to move towards what the predictions are and what the plans are. We are looking at a very good connectivity even at the last point in the villages, and mobile connectivity reaching everyone. And the public internet access is something that we are looking at to be available at all the places in the country. So these are various steps that we think we have taken, and we look forward to results showing very soon.
Also, ma'am, the fact that we are standing on the threshold of rollout of 5G. In that context, the importance of the PLI scheme for the telecom sector.
See, 5G is going to be a major event for India in the sense that we are not going to follow what other countries make, but we would want to make things ourselves. So that is an important point. That is a major turning point for telecom manufacturing in India. We would look forward to, as Mr. Mahajan said, our own control on the products that we are going to make. Now, 5G will require a lot of equipment that will be rolled out all over the country. Not just 5G, I also look at the requirement of work from home, requirement of education reaching right to the household, to the children in their hands in terms of their mobile connectivity. So these are going to push the requirement of equipment to an extent where I don't see why companies would not be interested in coming and investing in India, why our companies would not like to grow, why ancillarization will not happen. I don't see any reason that these things will not happen. I'm looking forward to a very good rollout of equipment manufacturing guided by these developments.
All right, so basically make in India and make for the world. Mr. Mahajan, the telecom and networking industry that represents over $100 billion industry. What are the opportunities that lie ahead for India?
Good. So first of all, India is a huge market. Let's say, as the policy itself says, that we are importing around 50,000 crores of equipment every year. So I can very confidently say that in years to come, might be a year or 2 years, we can completely remove this import and we can substitute it with Indian products. Indian products means the products which are, as government also wants, trusted products to be here in India. These will be products which are secure, which are trusted, manufactured in India with total control on IPR. Now, coming to the global market, as you said that it is around $400 billion of market globally. It's a great opportunity for India at this point of time when there is so much of turmoil in the industry which is happening worldwide.
Yes.
Like people are looking for trusted sources across the globe. And since India has been a great power in software production and development in the last many years, and today every big company in the world and technologies. So here there is a huge respect worldwide for Indian products, Indian people, Indian technology. And what we have seen in last few months is that the demand for Indian products has skyrocketed, and people are wanting to buy Indian products now. And with this policy coming on table, there is going to be a push to do a lot more R&D, to produce more technology, to develop better products, manufacture them, make them cost effective, and meet Indian demand as well as export to worldwide. So I think we should really take advantage of this policy, and in 5 years, which this policy framework talks about, we should exceed the numbers what government is expecting to do from this.
All right, so the hope is that we should exceed the numbers. Mr. Paul, of course, a huge opportunity beckons us. But what are the challenges that need to be addressed?
I will pick up from where Mrs. Praveen and Rajiv spoke of. Mrs. Praveen mentioned that 5G is an opportunity for us, and Rajiv mentioned that India is known for its design and software design prowess. Now, when we look at 5G as a technology, the technology building blocks at the electronic hardware level are fundamentally the same. But what is different is the way this is put together to deliver the 5G capability that is there. And here comes the opportunity where India, with its design capability, can bring out the products that are required in 5G. And to just highlight the point that Additional Secretary mentioned, that India will lead its way in 5G. And this is what, from the industry side, we call as leading with standards. And India has an opportunity, because of the huge domestic market that we have, to define a standard for ourselves. And once we define a standard, what happens in the industrial world, it eliminates a lot of your risk, because here is a standard where if I make a product to that standard, there is a market for it. So what we will see happening is, when India leads with standards in 5G, the industry, both Indian and global, and I don't see any reason why global companies will not leverage that out of India to design and make products which actually cater to that. And coming out of India, there is a lot of assurance for many countries saying that, look, here is a country that is democratic, that has got transparent processes, that is accountable, and I'm much better off buying a 5G equipment that is coming out of India rather than from somewhere else.
All right, so that's a very important point you're making, sir. On that, I'll take the closing comments from all my guests. Mrs. Praveen, making India a global manufacturing hub of telecom equipment. Your closing comments, ma'am.
Well, with that intention in mind, the Department of Telecom has come up with this scheme. And now we are looking forward to the industry showing not just equal, much more enthusiasm to participate in the scheme. We are also looking forward to the possibility that India will emerge as a very big manufacturing hub, not just by encouraging our own local manufacturers, but also bringing in bigger manufacturers who are outside to make investment in India, and heavy growth of ancillarization, which is going to benefit our own industry. So that is the rollout that we are looking at. Look forward to that. Thank you very much.
Mr. Paul? $1 trillion digital economy and now PLI scheme for the telecom sector. Way ahead.
Yes, so this is a forward-looking time. Just want to mention that this is one point intervention in an overall strategy that is being laid out. All the pistons need to be firing for us to succeed. And we, on behalf of industry, on behalf of MAIT, I want to use your channel to reach out to the various telecom building block companies, global and Indian, inviting them to come and participate in this PLI and take advantage of this opportunity that India is offering.
Mr. Mahajan, closing comments from you, sir.
Hello. Yeah, this is an excellent policy, and this is an opportunity for Indian companies as well as global companies to utilize it. And the challenge lies ahead is that how better products we can create here in India, which will be very competitive, which will be easier to not existing in the world. And with 5G coming in, we will be able to produce much better technology with lot more focus on R&D and manufacturing in the country.
All
And
right, so with
I
5G
think
coming
in years to come, we
Yes,
will
sir.
see many come. Yeah.
All right.
So with
Yeah.
5G coming in, we will have much better products to offer to the world because we will be focusing a lot on developing standards, products, technologies, and they will be very competitive, which world will look at us.
All right, so with the 5G coming in and of course with the PLI scheme for the telecom sector, a huge opportunity is there for India and we have to realize it to in fact realize our full potential. On that note, thank you so much for joining us. So that's all we had for you in this edition of Reset India. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Rajya Sabha TV.